My name's Alex. I just moved to the small town of Havenwood, Maine. Sounds quaint, right? Yeah, a peaceful place surrounded by trees, fresh air. At least that's what I thought when I signed the papers on this old wooden house. My job in the nearby city is pretty demanding. I usually get home late after working long hours. This house was everything I could scrape together after years of saving a new start in a new place. Everything was pretty normal until last week. I decided to spend a weekend cleaning out the messy shed out back. It was full of the previous owner's junk, all covered in spiderweb. When I moved a stack of dusty old wooden crates, I spotted a floorboard that looked a little different. Curious, I pried it up. Underneath wasn't dirt or concrete, but a small, dark hole. The way down looked like a narrow, rotten wooden staircase leading into a secret basement. The door at the bottom of the stairs was locked from the inside with a big metal latch. My heart was pounding. A secret basement? Locked from the inside? Curiosity won out over my initial fear. I ran into the house and grabbed the small axe I used for chopping wood. A few hard swings, and the old wooden door splintered open. A gust of damp, cold air rushed out. I turned on my phone flashlight and stepped down. Inside. Oh man. It wasn't a normal storage basement. It was a system of narrow, damp tunnels dug deep underground. The ceiling was low, and the walls were rough earth and rock, or hastily reinforced with rotten wood. I shone my flashlight down a long hallway. It just kept going, branching off here and there, a maze underground. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something else, old, stale, suffocating. I kept exploring, my flashlight beam sweeping across the crumbling earth walls. I noticed little things, an old bottle, a torn piece of cloth, trying to figure out who had dug this place and why. And then, suddenly, down the hall, not too far from me, something moved. A dark shape. It wasn't clear what it was, just an indistinct blob in the darkness, but I knew for sure I wasn't alone. It seemed to be standing still, watching me. My blood ran cold, my whole body froze. That feeling of being watched deep underground, in the dark, with that unknown thing, it was terrifying. In pure panic, I turned tail and ran. Bolted through the dark hallways, up the narrow stairs, not daring to look back. Only when I was breathing the fresh air, back on solid ground, under the afternoon sun, did I feel truly alive again. I sat down on the shed floor, my heart still hammering like crazy. What was that dark shape? An animal? Or something else? I thought about calling the cops, but then I hesitated. Havenwood is a small town, and anything weird spreads fast. I just moved here, trying to fit in. Reporting a dark shape in a secret basement would probably brand me as eccentric or unstable. Plus, a police investigation would be a huge hassle, disrupt my already busy life, especially with the late work hours, and could potentially cause legal issues with the structure itself. Was it built legally? If something illegal was found down there, could I, the current owner, get in trouble? Would it affect the house value or my ability to sell later? Those thoughts, combined with the fear of being seen as crazy in a new town, made me decide not to call the cops for now. It seemed easier, safer in a weird way, to figure it out myself first, or at least have someone with me to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. That night, I called a few close friends from the city, Mark, Sarah, and Jake. I told them everything, trying to sound calm, but the shake in my voice probably gave me away. At first, they thought I was joking, but when they heard how serious I was and the shiver in my voice, they gradually believed me. Of course, their reactions varied. Mark, the most practical guy in the group, was skeptical, figuring it was just dust or maybe I was tired and stressed out. Sarah, who's always curious about weird stuff and history, was immediately interested. Jake, the impulsive, adventurous one, was just plain excited about it. Awesome, a secret basement! Jake cheered over the phone. We gotta explore it. What the hell was it? I know this sounds crazy, but I couldn't sleep. The curiosity and the feeling that something wasn't right under my own house wouldn't let me. Saturday came. Mark brought some seriously bright flashlights, extra batteries, gloves, and even a can of bug spray, just in case it's a giant spider nest, he joked. But he didn't sound like he was entirely joking. Sarah brought a small notebook and pen, saying she wanted to take notes and sketch anything we found. Jake brought his optimism and a small folding shovel. just in case. We gathered in the shed. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, making it feel a little less gloomy. But just looking at the dark hole in the floor, the feeling of fear and unease washed over me again. "Ready?" I asked, my voice tight. Mark sighed. He didn't seem to believe in ghosts or anything, but he nodded anyway. Sarah tightened her shoelaces. Jake grinned. "Let's do it, exploration time." We climbed down the narrow hole one by one. The familiar smell of damp earth and cold engulfed us. We stepped into the tunnel system. There were 3 of us now, and it felt less isolated, but the dead silence and the seemingly endless corridors still made the air feel heavy. Our flashlights shone, dancing on the rough earth walls, creating weird shadows. "Wow," Sarah whispered. "This is really deep and extensive." "Who even dug this?" Mark mumbled, shining his light on the ceiling. We navigated the turns, trying to remember the way back. The feeling of being watched started to come back. It wasn't a clear, dark shape like before, just a vague feeling, like someone was holding their breath somewhere nearby. Our footsteps echoed in the narrow space, sounding louder than they should. Suddenly, Mark stopped. "Shh." We stood absolutely still. In the silence, we heard a sound. Very small, very distant, but distinct. It sounded like a faint scraping on stone or footsteps shuffling. "You guys hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. I nodded, my eyes darting into the darkness ahead and behind. The feeling of being watched was stronger now. This wasn't an illusion. Something was down here with us. We decided to proceed cautiously. The sound seemed to come from a different direction. We turned into another corridor. The deeper we went, the colder the air. We shone our lights on the walls, and this time we started seeing things besides earth and rock. Crude drawings on the earth walls like ancient symbols or rough figures. We didn't know what they meant, but they definitely made the place creepier. The hallway opened up into a small room. It wasn't very big, but enough for the 3 of us to stand comfortably. There were a few things inside: a log that looked like it was used for a seat, a pile of rags that might have been a blanket, and a small stone table. On the stone table were placed a few objects. When I shone my light on them, we collectively held our breath. They looked like bones. Not full human bones, but small bone fragments arranged weirdly on the stone table, interspersed with small stones and a few dry twigs. Around the table and on the floor, we saw symbols similar to the drawings we'd seen on the walls, but darker, and they looked more intentional. What the hell is this?" Jake whispered, his face pale, the folding shovel in his hand clenched tight. This isn't a normal shelter," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "Looks like a place for something, a ritual, or something like that." Just then, all our flashlights flickered wildly, almost going out. We jumped, pointing our lights around the room, and then we saw it. Not a vague, dark shape anymore. In the far corner of the room, where it was hardest for the light to reach, a tall, thin form was standing there. It seemed taller than a normal person, and it was just a shadow. No facial details, no clothes, but its presence was undeniable. It didn't move, just stood there, staring at us with something I couldn't see, but I felt that gaze. A small gasp escaped Sarah. Mark backed up and bumped into me. Jake backed towards the exit. Primal, cold fear clenched my chest. That shadow, it was real. It wasn't dust or an illusion. Nobody said a word. We all understood at the same time. Staying here is crazy. Turn around and run. We bolted out of the small room, ran back the way we came, our hasty footsteps echoing in the tunnel. The feeling of being chased, being stalked from behind, made adrenaline spike. We didn't hear any other footsteps but ours, but the shadow seemed to still be there, right behind us, hidden in the dark. The run through the maze of tunnels seemed endless. Finally, panting and shaking, we crawled out of the small hole in the shed, gulping in the evening air. The streetlight in the distance looked like the most beautiful thing right now. We sat on the shed floor, sweating and breathing hard. Nobody said anything for a few minutes. We just looked at each other, our faces pale in the flashlight beams. We had all seen it. We weren't crazy. The initial curiosity was completely gone, replaced by sheer terror. The secret basement under my house wasn't just a weird historical find. Something was living down there. The question now was harder than before. We had decided not to call the police for the reasons I'd thought about, but now, facing this terrifying reality, that decision felt scarier than ever. We had gotten ourselves into this, and it looked like we'd have to deal with it ourselves, but how do you deal with something like that, Shadow? Something that lives in the dark, in the underground maze of my own house? That night, none of us could sleep. We sat in my living room, all the lights on, doors locked tight. We whispered, talked, trying to come up with a plan. The feeling that the house wasn't safe anymore, that something from underground could crawl up at any moment, kept us on edge. The adventure had turned into a nightmare, and we had no idea how to wake up. All right, everyone, if you were on the edge of your seat with the story from Havenwood, Maine, make sure you hit that like button right now. And if you don't want to miss any more deep dives into the unexplained and the terrifying, subscribe to Mystery Files and turn on notifications. Now, the big question is, do you want a part 2 to the Havenwood basement story? Let me know in the comments below. Your feedback helps decide where we go next. Stay curious and stay safe out there.